connected.
Here's Chad,
Hey,
the lawn
Joe.
doctor,
I
with
thought
a
you were
tip for your lawn.
retired.
Just a couple
Living on
tips
a
for this
fixed
summer
income.
for a healthier lawn. Raise your lawnmower blade a notch or two. Longer grass helps conserve water and fight against stress. Double check your sprinkler coverage and watering times. Then call the lawn doctor to put down a grub preventative and to try our popular new 2-service soil enrichment program.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call the lawn doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawnDoctorCashValley.com.
Hey, Joe. I thought you were retired.
Living on a fixed income is tough. So here I am, an essential worker.
I know. I mean, food prices are going up every day. Thank goodness for benefitscheckup.org.
Benefits what?
benefitscheckup.org. It's a free website where people over 60 can find help to pay for food, medicine, even utilities. I got $1,200 a year in benefits. Maybe it can help you.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What'll life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we just brought some new ones in early this week. 25% off on all of our perennial, like 1 gallon plants, and some beautiful in-flower plants, some that are like starting to finish up blooming, some that are just starting to bloom. So we got a little bit of everything in right now. So 25% off on all of our blooming perennials. And we also have a few hanging baskets left, and there's some gorgeous ones in 12-inch pots. So our 12-inch hanging baskets are 40% off. So we want to find homes for these. They look amazing. They just need to find a nice new home. 40% off on our remaining hanging baskets. So if you got one the first part of May and it's struggling, it's not doing very well, you could replace that with a new hanging basket. 40% off right now in the store. And we got some nice shrubs in last week, some new trees, and like I said, a lot of perennials as well too. So the greenhouses are full. We've got lots of tomatoes to choose from. We've got peppers, we've got squashes, melons, cucumbers, all kinds of vegetable plants. And it's not too late to plant seeds still. Carrots, beets, you could plant those right now, no problem. And so people are still doing a lot of planting.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of gardening.
Yeah, when we stopped by last week to grab all of our seeds. And I noticed too, great time to plant flowers.
Yes.
We grabbed some of your wave petunias, put those in, and those just took off. As soon as they hit the dirt, they're just like, oh, thank you.
It is. It's a great time to plant, and we've got all the planters planted on Center Street, and they're starting to fill in. It's funny, when we first get those planted, they look so sparse. You know, people kind of look at them and go, are these going to do anything? The plants are kind of far apart, but most of the plants that we plant will get 3 feet to 4 feet across. And so if we plant them too close, then they're so crowded during the growing season that they're crawling over the top of each other. And so we have to really spread them out to get the best production out of them. It's just, crowd them too much, they don't reach their full potential. So we have to give them a little bit extra space to grow. But we feed them twice a week and sometimes even 3 times a week to really get them going. And once they take off, they just bloom and bloom and bloom and bloom all summer. Look great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do today is we haven't really mentioned, but this is a first for you, Mark. It's a first actually for us, as we've been talking over the last several months. We're in the midst of a major remodel here at the Radio Ranch, and we have moved studios. And in fact, last night, about midnight last night, we had things all finished up, and we're still working through some of the logistics as we have moved into a temporary location while our beloved KVNU studio is stripped down to the studs and rebuilt.
I know why Al retired last week.
The joke was we purposely said, you know what, Al, we want to have you leave on a high note, so we're not going to do anything too crazy until after you leave. And The only thing was, is as soon as he did leave, it got really crazy.
Really crazy, yeah.
So,
yeah, really crazy. But the new studio is awesome. It's really nice.
Yeah. And the one thing is, though, is that we are working through a few audio technical difficulties, and we've got those ironed out this morning. But as far as questions and comments, we aren't able to take your calls this morning. But as Mark and I were planning for the show, we have put together a number of the questions that have come in to Anderson Seed and Garden. We're going to talk about those this morning, and we hope to have the phone lines up here in the next day or two so that we'll be able to take more calls, because that's always one of the highlights of being able to hear what you're seeing in your lawn and your garden. And I think number one thing that people are calling in and coming into the store about is talking about grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers are just crazy right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming in with grasshopper issues, and they're tiny, but they are plentiful. And, and there's lots of them. And they're coming from the vacant lot next door or the field out back, and they are in mass. And there's a couple different things we can do to prevent. So in my very own garden, we've got a field right next door to our garden. And in that field, there's just tons of grasshoppers coming over. And they like to eat my potatoes. They like to eat my beans. They like to eat my corn. But it seems like they're hanging out on the carrots. Like I go out in the carrots and just kind of pull a few weeds out of the carrots, and they just fly out of there like crazy. But they don't seem to be eating the carrots as much. They like everything else. So what I did this week is we did a little insecticide spray just to kind of knock the numbers down. And if you're spraying for grasshoppers right now with any of the main insecticides, you can kill off literally tens of thousands of them at a time.
And a good insecticide would be like?
So we would have, so there's a couple different options. If you're doing ornamentals only, our go-to is Bug Blaster from High Yield. So the High Yield Bug Blaster has a product in there called bifenthrin. The bifenthrin's excellent on grasshoppers. It has a longer residual. It has a really quick knockdown, and it's safe to use on turf and on shrubs and trees and around the house and around the yard. And it does a great job on mosquitoes and box elder bugs and spiders, ants, earwigs, but especially it does a great job on grasshoppers. So great product. Gives you a longer residual so you don't have to spray as frequently, and a really quick knockdown. If you're spraying in your edibles, whether it's fruits like raspberries or strawberries, grapes, or if you're spraying in your vegetable garden, where there's edibles that we're going to be eating them, then we're going to switch to a different product. And so we've actually got the 7, and this is a new formulation of 7, which is safe to use on edibles up to, on most things, about 24 hours before you harvest. So before you pick it and eat it, all you have to do is wait 24 hours or longer, and then harvest it, wash it off, and you're good to go. So this is a safer product to use, and very, 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 very effective at knocking those grasshoppers down. We'll give you at least a week to 2 week residual, and anytime the grasshoppers come in contact with it as well as ingest it, then it will knock those guys down. And it's probably the best time to spray is in the evening. I like to spray when the sun's kind of starting to go down, especially if you have bees. So I've got 2 hives at my place, and so we definitely are conscientious of the bees. And so I'll wait till about 8:30 when the sun's gone down and it's cooler. Bees have all started to head home. The hive. Yeah, they've started to head home for the evening, and so then we'll spray. And then if you have kids or pets, you can spray, and then everybody's like inside before you spray. Do your spraying. It'll have all night to dry, and by the next morning it's dry. Everybody can go back outside. So if you've got cats or dogs that you're concerned about, or if you've got kids, make sure and spray later in the evening when everybody's gone inside, and then it has plenty of time to dry before everybody goes back out. And so it's less likely to cause problems with your beneficial insects like your bees, and definitely don't want the kids and the pets getting into it while it's wet. But once it's dry, then no problems there. So the 7's awesome. We also have the Sayonara is really good, and the Indoor Outdoor from High Yield. So the Indoor Outdoor's got permethrin in it. Been a great product for grasshoppers for years and years and years. Also safe for fruits and vegetables. So got some really, really great products out there between the Bug Blaster and the Indoor Outdoor and the 7 to really knock those down, no matter where you're spraying in your yard.
Okay.
Yeah. So no matter where you're spraying.
Now, once you have those grasshoppers knocked down as much as you can, is there anything that would keep them out of your yard and keep them in that vacant field? Because that's one of the things that I have living on the west side of town. We don't have any development towards the south of us. And so those grasshoppers are like, hey, look, it's still follow the yellow brick road to the buffet.
At Will's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Will's house. So that's what I did. So I sprayed to knock those tens of thousands down, and then I put my repellent down. And we've got a repellent that comes in a liquid form as well as in a granule form. And the granules, I broadcast those up and down the rows of my garden, and it's made from cedar oil. It smells really good, so it made my garden smell awesome. And the grasshoppers just don't like the smell of the product. In fact, it kind of messes with their respiratory system, makes it difficult for them to breathe. And so they will just leave and go somewhere else because of the way the cedar oil affects their bodies and their respiratory system. And so you can discourage them from coming back into your property after you spray and knock them down. So usually we'll get about 2 weeks again out of the repellent, and it really does an amazing job. So if you've got thousands of grasshoppers coming in, all of a sudden you've only got 10 or 15 in various locations. So using the repellent last year, I didn't notice a complete absence of grasshoppers. There were still a few that were lingering around, but it cut their numbers down to less than 1% of what I had dealt with previously. So it does make a big difference. And then we do have a new bait this year as well too. It's called Niban, and we started bringing it in last year. The Niban is made from a natural ingredient. It's boric acid, and the boric acid is safe to use around the house. It's safe to use out in the yard. It's been formulated so it will last multiple rain events. And so instead of just going bad the first time it rains, like previous baits we've dealt with in the past, this one can handle about 6 to 10 rain or water applications, and it still works. It's UV resistant, so it won't break down in the sunlight as well too. And so it's attractive to the grasshoppers that eat the baits, and then it kills them. Totally safe for pets and for beneficial insects because they won't eat the bait. If you have insects that have eaten the bait, but then your chickens eat the grasshoppers, it won't bother your chickens. If birds come and eat the bait, it won't bother the birds. The boric acid can be excreted by mammals, and so if you consume too much boric acid, you will just I was going to say excrete it out. We'll try and be appropriate on the on the radio, but the insects can't, and so it builds up in their bodies and in their tissues, and it kills the insects. So it won't bother people, won't bother pets, won't bother secondary critters that are around the yard, like birds. Maybe some people wish it would kill
maybe
the deer.
Keep them away from.
But very, very effective, very safe to use, and long-lasting. But what we have found is that when there is a smorgasbord of products or plants for the grasshoppers to eat, they won't necessarily choose the bait. And so the baits are better to use when their food source starts to dry up. And it's kind of like, it is kind of like going to the buffet. It's like, oh, do I want prime rib tonight? Or do I want the smoked turkey? That sounds really good. Or, there's so many different options. You can't decide. You go, oh, well, there's the hot dog bar over there. No, I think I'll go for the prime rib. And so the grasshoppers are going to eat the lush green things that are there for them. But as soon as those are gone, then all of a sudden the hot dog bar looks a lot better, because all the other food's gone. And so the baits work best when their food source really starts to dry up, which is generally the latter part of this month. The foothills will start to brown up. It'll be a lot hotter, and their food source will start to decrease, and that's when they start to move into the areas where there's more lush green plants. Like your lawn, your shrubs, your trees, your vegetable garden. It's more attractive to them than the location where they're at because all their grass is dried up. And so that's when the bait is going to be the most effective because they don't have so many choices. They don't have the options that they had previously. And so it's going to work a lot better that way. So much, much better.
So when it comes to grasshoppers, main thing first off, you want to hit them with an insecticide.
Yep.
And then if you have the ability to be able to put in something that will kind of repel them from your neighborhood.
Yep. And the cedar oil is great at repelling all kinds of insects. So whether I have grasshoppers or not, I use it in my vegetable garden because it repels mosquitoes, it repels flies, it repels moths, and it repels grasshoppers. So any of those flying insects, and it prevents those adults from coming in and laying their eggs on your plants. And so I've seen a huge decrease in the amount of insects in my garden when I use the repellent because they're not coming in and laying eggs, and it's the larvae that do all the damage. So it's not so much the Mexican bean beetles themselves or the Colorado potato beetles, it's their babies that do all the damage. And so once they come in and lay their eggs, then it's the larvae that are chewing your plants to pieces. And so if we can keep those adult insects out, it will really prevent, these huge outbreaks of insects that are damaging all your plants. And we have seen a lot of bugs. The aphids have been horrific. We've got leaf hoppers all over the place. And we're starting to see tobacco budworms already, and squash bugs too.
Already coming in.
Already starting to see squash bugs. But I have a lot of people bringing in ladybug larvae that they don't know what the insect is. And the ladybug larvae don't look like traditional ladybugs. They're actually bigger than the adults. And so once they start eating the aphids, they will actually grow to be larger than the adult lady beetles. But they look kind of like a black and orange, I was going to say like an alligator. They're kind of long and narrow, and they have a tapered tail. And so they're much longer and bigger, and they move very quickly, and they will go after aphids like crazy. So I'm seeing a lot of people bringing those ladybug larvae in. They're afraid that they're insects that are damaging their plants, but they're actually eating they're eating aphids like crazy. So the ladybugs themselves will eat up to 50 aphids a day, and the ladybug larvae can eat even more. I think it's about 75 to 100 aphids a day. So they will clean your trees out really quite well. And we just happen to get some more ladybugs in. And so we've got a good selection of ladybugs and lacewings in stock right now. They just came in yesterday. So lots of ladybugs, and the lacewings are interesting. They eat more insects than just the aphids. So they'll actually eat leaf hoppers, and they'll eat thrips, and they'll eat mites. So they have a broader palette of insects that they like to consume, and their lifespan is shorter. And so as soon as they become adults, they start laying eggs and reproducing. And so since their lifespan is much shorter, they tend to stay in the location where they hatch longer. And if they're constantly laying eggs, you've got new ones that are hatching out. And so the lacewings are much more likely to stick around in your yard than the ladybugs will, because the ladybugs, once the food source is gone, they're like, oh, I'm out of here.
I'm going somewhere else.
I'm going next door. Yeah, that's where all the bugs are. And so they take off. But the lacewings are consistently laying eggs. And so even if they die off, you will have a whole new generation of lacewings coming within just weeks. And they stay in that general vicinity where they've hatched. And so you get a longer lasting natural insect control with the lacewings. So we have lacewings and ladybugs combined, and then we also have the ladybugs as well too, and they do a great job at clearing out your aphids. So like I had aphids all over my beech trees because they love the beech because the sap's really sweet. So they're all over my tricolor beech, and they're on my copper beech. And so I noticed the aphids, but I also saw a whole bunch of ladybugs on the tree. So I was like, all right, I'll just let the ladybugs do their thing. And I went back about a week or 10 days later, and every aphid was gone.
They just cleaned them out.
They just cleaned them out, yeah. And they were covered. They were starting to curl the leaves, and the ladybugs just got in there and just ate every single aphid that was on my tree. So I didn't even spray them. Yeah,
nice.
Didn't have to spray them. So yeah. And to prevent, you really want to use an insect drench, because the drench ends up inside the leaves, and so when the aphids are consuming the sap out of the leaves, the insecticide will kill them. But since it's inside the plants, it won't bother your beneficial insects. And so it works both ways. It won't bother your ladybugs, but it will take out the aphids before they really get going and do too much damage. And if the aphids have consumed the insecticide and they're sick, like it hasn't killed them yet, the ladybugs won't eat them. They just won't eat them. Yeah.
Huh?
So if they don't look like they're normal and healthy, the ladybugs just ignore them. It's kind of like again going to the bar, the buffet bar. It's like that salad,
hot dog, prime rib.
that salad doesn't look really good. I'm gonna pass.
Good to go. I think hit the ice cream bar.
I'm gonna go somewhere else. So we'll keep up the same analogy. So,
all right. Well, coming up after the break, we want to talk about Father's Day and also a lot going on at Anderson Seed and Garden that we want to talk about as well. So stay with us. You're listening to the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
Logan this past week as part of a 4,000-mile bike ride to raise money and awareness toward eliminating poverty housing. The 10-week bicycle ride put on by the Fuller Center for Housing spans across 12 states, beginning in Seattle and ending in Washington, D.C. On Thursday, cyclists took a break from the saddle to volunteer their time fixing up the property of a Logan resident. Homeowner Ash Mortensen says volunteers completed what would have taken her all summer in just 48 hours. Mortensen said it's amazing being able to watch what a really big team of people can do in just 2 days. Cyclists say that doing service on a rest day helps them reset for the next 100-mile day of riding. The Salt Lake Planning Commission has voted no to proposed changes that would allow for skyscrapers and more changes near the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. Smith Entertainment Group planned to revitalize downtown as Utah welcomed a new NHL hockey team. They're looking to add a new sports, entertainment, culture, and convention district. Wednesday night, there was a bit of a halt when the Salt Lake Planning Commission voted 6-0 to not recommend the amendments presented to them. A big thing they mentioned was a desire to slow down. They felt they were being asked to make the decision rather suddenly. Commissioner Bree Shear said she feels these revitalization projects are not the solution for downtown. Sunny skies during the day, clear at night, cooler air moving in, high in the mid-80s on Saturday, upper 70s for the high on Sunday. Get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
From ABC Sports, I'm Chuck Severson. The Mavericks aren't done yet.
The Dallas Mavericks down to their final loss of the finals. Yeah, they didn't get swept, and they put down a 38-point beatdown on the Boston Celtics. The finals remains alive, the third largest margin of victory in NBA Finals history.
The final call on ESPN. The Mavs came out dominant on both ends, blowing out the Celtics in Game 4, 122-84, to keep their season alive. Luka Doncic led all scorers with 29 points, speaking with Lisa Salters after the game.
We got to play the same way. We know how tough it is to play there. I know their fans, they're going to be loud, so we got to stay focused. We got to do the same things we did today.
Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla.
I thought Dallas played great. Give a lot of credit to them. All of their guys, whoever went in, well balanced. Thought they played with a ton of energy and physicality, and you got to give them that. And they're a great team, and that's the Dallas. That's the reason why they're here is when they play like that.
Game 5 in Boston on Monday night. Dallas looking to become the first team in NBA history to rally back from a 3-0 hole in the playoffs, while the Celtics will hope to clinch championship number 18 at home. Shifting to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, Game 4 between the Panthers and Oilers in Edmonton tonight. The Panthers currently up 3-0 and looking to clinch their first Stanley Cup championship in franchise history. Panthers forward Matthew Tkachuk.
It's a very committed five-man effort out there against those guys. They're very talented players, and you have to be against those guys if you want to have success.
The puck drops at 8 p.m. on our ABC. In the MLB, more sour notes for Boston as the Yankees clobbered the Red Sox 8-1 at Fenway. The Phillies beat the Orioles 5-3 in 11 innings. And the Mets doubled up the Padres 2-1. Chuck Severson, ABC Sports.
This is Jeff John, head golf professional at Logan River Golf Course. Happy Father's Day from all of us at the river. It's time once again for our annual Father's Day Punch Pass sale and shirt sale. All Punch Passes are on sale through Father's Day at the lowest prices of the year. We also have our men's shirt sale. Buy any shirt and receive a voucher for 9 holes of golf at the Logan River Golf Course. Come in and check out our great selection of shirts for Dad. Logan River Golf Course. Play well, play fair, play fast.
The Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the show, 8:34 Saturday morning as we look out to the south of us, clouds, and as we were talking earlier, Mark, chance of some rain possibly later today.
It looks a little cloudy out there.
Yeah.
It does.
Which, compared to the 90s that we were dealing with earlier this week, it's going to be a nice weekend.
It's quite refreshing.
Absolutely.
It's quite nice.
And even colder weather coming this next week.
Looks like Monday, Tuesday are looking kind of chilly. So I was out in my garden this morning before coming down to the show. Thought I would check and make sure my plants were looking pretty good. And I'm trying to stretch them as many days between waterings as possible. So when I first get things planted, it's like every 2 or 3 days I'll try and water, and I'm trying to push them to every 3 to 4 right now. And so it has been really hot, so I've been a little bit concerned. So I thought I'd go double check because they've gone 3 days now, and I'm like, let's double check this morning. Tomatoes looked great. Peppers looked great. Cucumbers are looking awesome. My cantaloupes are starting to run. So it's very exciting. And my giant pumpkins are like so close to being big enough to start setting fruit. So
about how big are the plants now?
So the plants are 13 feet long and they are about 10 feet wide. So they're spreading like crazy. In fact, I've had to increase the size of my shade cloth enclosure for each of the plants at least weekly. And right now it's like I just did it on, I think it was like on Monday, and they're almost too big for the area that I've like opened up for them already. So I got to make them a little bit bigger. But they're starting to produce female flowers, and so what you want to really do is wait until they get about that 13 to 15 feet long, and that's where you want to start setting the fruit. If you set the fruit too close to where the roots are coming up out of the ground, it can actually pull the vines out of the ground as your pumpkin gets bigger. So if it's like really close to that rooted area, it'll just yank them out of the ground. And so you want to wait till your vine's about 13 to 15, 16 feet long, and that's where you want to start setting the fruits on that main vine. And then the rest of the plant's big enough to really start feeding that pumpkin and getting some strength into it. So I'm hoping this week to be able to set a fruit on the vines and have it going. I know some of the other growers, the professional growers around the country, have already got fruit set on their pumpkins, but we were a little slow getting started in Cache Valley this year. So we're thinking we'll have about 100-day growing season before the way off in September. So Pumpkin Festival, 28th of September.
Can't wait.
We're getting ready. Yeah.
It's going to be a great time.
We're working on it right now. So the Pumpkin Festival, we'll have more artists. We'll have more activities. We'll have more pumpkins. We'll have more music, more live music. So we're trying to do just a little bit more this year than we did last year. So we'll see what happens.
Well, last year for the first year, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. It was so much fun. So a lot of great things happening at Anderson's this weekend. So we've got fruit trees are on sale, 30% off. Lots of great trees to choose from. I've got some 5-gallon, some 7-gallon, and some 10-gallon trees that look amazing, 30% off. Our perennials are 25% off. So all of our perennials, we just got some new ones in just the first part of this week, 25% off all of our 1-gallon perennials. And our hanging baskets, we have some really nice ones to choose from still. There's actually quite a few. 40% off on our hanging baskets. These are our 12-inch hanging baskets, 40% off. And it is Father's Day weekend. I keep forgetting it's Father's Day weekend. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of snuck up on us this year. Yeah. Flag Day was yesterday.
Yep. And before you know it, I mean, summer will officially arrive this week. And yeah, There's a lot going on.
That's usually when we're looking for those 90-degree temperatures, and we've already had some. Already had some nice temperatures, makes everything grow. And for Father's Day, we do have some really great options other than amazing trees and hanging baskets and perennials. We've got gorgeous roses in stock right now. A lot of great plants. We've got some beautiful peonies that are just finishing up blooming. The roses look amazing. And we also have some great tool options. We've got great loppers. We've got shovels, rakes, anything to make life easier for those fathers. Lots of gloves, gardening hats. If you've got a gardener in your family that would like that, we have some great gifts at Anderson Seed and Garden. Bird feeders, beautiful, gorgeous wind chimes that are precision tuned as well too. So a lot of great gift items at Anderson's. Gift that I would love to have at Anderson's would be a BCS tiller. If you want to go big, go for the tiller, because it makes life so much easier with one of those tillers.
Especially if you plant just right, then you can go right down the rows. It's perfect.
It's the best. So our garden is about 8,000 square feet, and with my BCS, I can do it in about 40 minutes. 35 to 40 minutes, I can till the whole garden, but with one hand, basically. It just does all the work on its own. It's so nice. It saves so much work, and just so easy to handle. And most tillers that are that big, they are difficult to handle. You have to wrestle them. And this one, you just pretty much let it do its thing, and it just goes. Soil comes out
Beautiful.
so nice. And then you can put different attachments on. You can put a snow thrower on. You can put a brush mower on. I've got one in front of the store. It's got a brush mower on it, which is just like amazing for going through maybe that field next door where you got grass and weeds and stuff, and you just need to cut it down, and you just go right through there, and it'll just take it all down.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Yeah.
Okay, so BCS tiller for Dad.
Yep. Can't beat it.
Okay.
That's a little bit of a larger expenditure for sure. So maybe I'll have to save up a couple years for one of those. But
well, we've been talking about questions that have come into Anderson Seed and Garden over the last couple of weeks, and one is with the weather that we've had, the really hot temperatures, and then still a lot of water during the spring. That has caused a lot of stress on some lawns. I know we saw that. We threw out some fertilizer again last weekend, and the only thing is that you throw that fertilizer down. I mowed last weekend, and then I look out again today, and I'm thinking,
I got to mow.
I got to mow again. So
it does. It makes it grow like crazy. So a lot of people coming in the store, they fertilized, in March or April, and their lawn was looking really good. It has turned really hot, so the grass is stressing just a little bit. Great time to feed it. So a little fertilizer, slow release nitrogen with some iron right now would be excellent. But the things that are really making a difference on most people's lawns right now is application of Humate. The Humate really, really helps when the heat kicks in. So really keeps the grass looking good, puts lots of minerals and micronutrients back into the soil to keep it looking green and good, and help it recover from some damage that maybe has occurred, and helps the soil retain the moisture better. And then on top of the Humate, an application of Hydrotain or Back to Green is really going to help make your watering much more successful and much more effective. So Hydrotain, once it gets into the soil, it binds to your soil, and then it is very attractive to water, so it'll pull moisture down into your soil. Even dew that's accumulated on your lawn in the morning from the humidity, it's like gathered on the grass, it will pull that down into the soil and make that water available to your plants. And it lasts 90 days. And so the manufacturer says it will decrease your water by up to 50%. And I can't quite get 50% out of it, but I can get about 30 to 40%. So if I'm watering on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, and I put my Hydrotain on, I can cut that back from 3 days a week to 2 days a week and go like Mondays and Thursdays instead. And the grass looks just as good as if I had watered it the 3 times a week. And so we're shooting for about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water applied per week in 2 applications. And if you use the Hydrotain, you can stretch that even a little bit farther and make your water go even more than what you're getting out of it. And it's not just for turf. It's good for flowers. It's good for vegetable gardens. You can use it in a whole lot of different areas. And if you use the Back to Green instead, it has a high dose of iron in there, so it will really, really green your lawn up, make it look amazing in just a short amount of time. It'll give you that really deep, dark green, and also give you that water absorption and holding capacity that it doesn't have naturally. And so you can really, really decrease the amount of water you use, but still keep your lawn and garden and flower beds looking great. Yeah, makes a big difference.
All right, well, I'm just going to hit that there. And now I have another question, because I know probably one of the concerns people have, especially as we see these temperatures in the 90s, they probably say, can I plant right now? Can I plant in the garden? Can I plant grass?
Yes.
And what's your answer to that?
So the hotter it gets, it does make things a little bit more complicated, but you can still plant even when it's hot, especially grass. So turf, when the temperatures get higher into the 90s, that's when the grass actually comes up the fastest. So really the best time to plant turf, to plant lawn, is between now and about the 15th of September. So right now, when we're starting to get into the 90s, the soil's warming up, that seed's going to germinate faster, and it's a great time to plant grass, because that grass comes up so quickly and it starts to spread so fast. You could plant grass the middle of July, and really by Labor Day, you will have mowed it at least 2 or 3 times, and that grass will be thickening up to the point where it looks like it's always been there. Mm-hmm. And so it will just grow that much quicker. When it comes to trees and shrubs, think about where they're coming from. At our place, fortunately, we have shade cloth, and so it really helps protect our plants, keeps them looking good all summer long. But they're out there sitting on concrete or on asphalt. So if we've got a 95-degree day, do you think they're going to do better planted in the ground or sitting on the concrete in the asphalt?
Yeah.
So really, they're going to do fine. And I've planted trees in the middle of July. It was 100 degrees, south-facing slope. And, of course, they're going to stress just a little bit. But if you prepare the hole properly and you use the right product with it to encourage some root development and really get those plants reestablished in their new location, they will plant just fine, even in the hottest, driest part of the summer. And so it's critical that you prepare your hole properly, dig the hole extra wide, put some nice, transplanting mix in there with it, so it loosens that soil up, lightens the soil up, and then make sure and water it with a root stimulator like Kanga Roots, and really get that plant established in a short amount of time. And all of a sudden, those trees and shrubs will just be taken off like crazy. So there's landscaping that happens all summer long, all over the valley, and so there's a lot of people out planting throughout the summer, even despite the hot temperatures, and those plants do just great. Mm-hmm. They do fine.
Yeah. The main thing is you just want to just watch them really close and make sure to get them plenty of water. That's one of the things we noticed. We planted an apricot tree last, it was probably late fall, and it went through some stress, and right. This year it just hasn't really leafed out a whole lot. And we had a pear tree that did the exact same thing for that first year.
Yeah.
And then after that first season, it just, boom, they come alive.
Took off like crazy. Yeah. It's critical that you prepare in advance if you're planting when it's a little bit hotter. Make sure those holes are extra wide. So if you've got a 5-gallon pot, I try and dig my hole 3 times the width of the pot, but about the same depth. So it's going to go in the same depth that's planted in the pot that it's currently existing in, but go extra wide. And then I mix about 30 to 50% of a soil conditioner into the soil that I pull out of the hole. I'll dig my hole, throw the soil in a wheelbarrow, and then I'll mix that transplanting mix in with it and work that in. It really breaks the soil up, it lightens it up, and all of a sudden you have this really nice soil to transplant back with. And so once I get the tree in the ground, we'll put some mycorrhiza on it, and then backfill with that soil that we put into the wheelbarrow, and then water it with Kanga Roots, root stimulator, try and get that plant reestablished. And the Kanga Roots really focuses on getting new roots to develop and to spread. So you get all these fine root hairs that are developing on the plant that pick up water and pick up nutrient and provide it to its through the root system all the way through the plant up to the top, and it won't go through as much stress. and it's able to pick up the water and nutrient that it needs to get reestablished. And the one thing that a lot of people don't do when they're transplanting is they don't prune. And so after I get it planted, there's always a little bit of damage that happens on the root system. So I will make sure and prune usually 20 to 30% of the tree or the shrub back, so that it doesn't have as much material to have to supply water and nutrient to. And so if I'm planting a tree and I prune 25% of the branches off, whatever damage happened to the root system when I planted, compensated for that by taking the extra branches off up on the top. And so it doesn't have to pick up as much water and as much nutrient as it needed to sustain that full tree. Where I've pruned it back, it doesn't have to work as hard to get reestablished. And so that really makes a big difference as well too. So there's always excess branches on the trees that you can end up pruning off. It's just when you have this lush growth on the tree and then you transplant it to a new location, it's always going to have some damage to the root system. So it's never going to be able to pick up the water and nutrient that it could previously. And so by pruning it, you're going to preemptively, remove some of that excess growth that it doesn't need to sustain anymore. And then all of a sudden the strength is going into the root system and into the remaining branches. You don't see as much stress. You don't see as much damage on the tree when you're transplanting that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, what about planting lawns?
Yeah.
Planting grass right now with these hotter temperatures. Of course, this week going to be a little different, but when we were in the 90s last week.
I had a gentleman in actually yesterday, and we were talking about grass, and he's like, I really want to plant, but it's just going to get too hot. And I'm like, no, don't wait. And it's like, get your sprinklers done. And he's like, they're almost ready. By next week, I'll have the sprinklers all done. It's like, great. If you get your sprinklers in, all you need to do is set your timer to go off for 3 to 5 minutes 3 times a day. And he's like, that's it? And it's like, yep, 3 to 5 minutes 3 times a day. We don't want puddles showing up. We just want to keep a little bit of moisture out there. Have it come on at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and then maybe about noon, and then again about maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We just want to keep that little bit of moisture out there throughout the day when it's really hot. And it's not like we're watering tons. 3 minutes, 3 minutes to 5 minutes a day, just to keep that little bit of moisture out there. And so what I recommended was he had to do a little bit of harrowing and grading after he got the sprinkling system in there. So it's like, all right, get the sprinklers done. We're gonna kind of harrow that whole thing and then run a roller over it. And I said the roller will help reveal your low and your high spots after you've harrowed it. And so then you'll be able to roll it and look across the turf and go, oh, there's a low spot over there. Oh, it's really high over here. And then you can like fix those before you plant. So roll it, fix the spots that need to be adjusted, and then lightly rake the whole thing. So we're going to basically chicken scratch the whole thing, and then broadcast your seed out there, broadcast some humate out, broadcast some fertilizer out. And a couple things I did recommend for him was to apply the Hydrotain so that he wouldn't have to water as much, getting that new grass up. And when he was working the soil, we talked about adding some zeolite as well too, to help the soil, again, retain more moisture. While you're working that soil, it's a great time to do it. So there's some good products you can put in there to help get the grass to germinate and come up faster, but also to help retain the moisture as well too. And then once you get that grass seed down and the fertilizer and the Hydrotain, then you want to roll it again. And by rolling it again, it will just slightly cover up some of the grass seed that's fallen down into the grooves where we chicken scratched it. So where you scratch it, we're going to broadcast that seed over the top of it. It's going to kind of fall down in the grooves. And then when you roll it, it just kind of compacts the soil just right over the top of the grass that fell down in those grooves. And that grass will germinate much faster with just that little bit of compaction on it. And then set those sprinklers to go for 3 to 5 minutes. And really, you don't want puddles showing up. You want to make sure it stays damp, stays moist, and it can dry out in between the waterings as well too. But puddles will push the seed away, and it's like too much water. So no puddles, but just a damp, light watering 3 times a day. And with the temperatures that we've had, you'll have grass up in 7 days.
Okay.
7 days.
Wow.
That fast, yeah. And as it gets hotter, we get into July and August, it'll be 5 days. That bluegrass will germinate in 5 days, where in April, it takes 21 days for it to come up. So it's going to cut your germination time by a third. Well, it's going to cut it down to about a third.
Yeah,
about a third to maybe even a quarter of the time that it takes for it to germinate in the springtime. And it really will take off. And then as soon as your grass gets tall enough to mow, it's okay to like walk on it when it's small. But when it gets tall enough to mow, start mowing it. The sooner you can mow it, the faster it's going to spread and the faster it's going to fill in and thicken up. And so as soon as it gets tall enough to mow, we tell people to start mowing. And then once you've mowed 2 or 3 times, you can really get after the weeds and kill the weeds without damaging your new grass. So it's really it's not as difficult of a process as you might think.
Okay.
Yeah, much simpler.
Now, some of the other diseases that you're seeing right now with the hot temperatures that we've had, the wet spring that we had, it sounds like there's a few other things that are impacting trees and shrubs.
Yeah. Starting to see some fire blight and starting to see some anthracnose. And that usually happens when our temperatures warm up because the trees get infected during the cool, wet season. And we had a really cool, wet spring. And so a longer, cooler, wetter spring, we're seeing mildew that's popping up on trees like crazy, especially maples. But anthracnose infects the leaves of maples and sycamores and oaks. And it will start to damage the tissue right along the vein structure of the leaves. So where the veins are in the leaves, that's where the damage starts to occur. And then it will spread and it will eventually cover the whole leaf and the leaves will fall off the trees. So we're starting to see anthracnose. I probably saw 5 samples yesterday of the anthracnose on maples, but it gets into sycamores and oaks as well too. So watch for that. If you're seeing leaf tissue damage, in the center of the leaf, then we can control that with a systemic fungicide like F-Stop from Fertilome. Really does a great job on anthracnose. It's better if you can spray it before the damage shows up. And so springtime, early May, middle of May is a great time to do that because that's when the leaves are getting infected when they first come out. Aspen leaf spot as well on quaking aspen. All these diseases we can prevent if we are consistently dealing with them every year. We can prevent them by doing a preventative spray in mid-May. And it will control the aspen leaf spot. It will control powdery mildew. It will control the anthracnose and all the other diseases that we're seeing on the trees that are showing up now when it starts to get really hot. Fire blight, unfortunately, is a different story. That's when once you start to see the damage, we have to prevent that way earlier while the trees are in bloom. So on apples and pears, we talked about a lot earlier this spring how to prevent that from getting into the trees. Once it's in the trees, you got to just prune that out since it's bacterial. It's inside the circulatory system of the tree. So you've got to prune the damage out and then treat it with garden foss to prevent it from spreading any further. It's the only thing that will stop it from spreading. So starting to see a lot of those diseases or really starting to see a lot of iron deficiency as well too. So shrubs, trees, raspberries, strawberries, they're all starting to show little bit of iron chlorosis. So we're seeing a yellowing of the leaves with a dark green vein that's standing out. And then as it progresses, the leaves will get burnt. They'll get kind of crispy along the edges. So the iron deficiency makes them more susceptible to wind and to sunburn. And so we'll see that damage showing up right along the edges of the leaves. Saw a ton of samples of raspberries this week that were iron deficient. Easy to take care of. So a chelated iron like the EDDHA chelated iron works in soil pH above 7. So it's one of the few products that will work if your soil pH is above 7. And our soils here are 7, 7.5, 8, maybe even 8.5 if you got a high clay content. So that EDDHA iron will do a great job no matter what your soil pH is. And it's excellent for trees. It's great for shrubs. Really fast on strawberries and raspberries. It'll green those iron deficient plants back up. And it's a good idea to put a little bit of iron out there every year for those plants because they'll produce better. Like your raspberries won't produce well if they're iron deficient, and their strawberries won't either. So always good to supplement them with a little bit of iron when you're doing your fertilizer in the spring as well too. So yeah, seeing a lot of problems.
Any other diseases that you're seeing in the last minute that we have to talk about?
Mildew is just really bad. Seeing mildew on all kinds of plants, whether it's on apples or maples and it's even starting to show up on a lot of perennial flowers, like columbines and delphiniums. So we're seeing mildew on all kinds of plants. Those systemic fungicides, like the F-Stop, is amazing at controlling mildew. It does a really, really great job, and it's safe to use. I had somebody call the other day. They're like, "I'm using this disease control. Is it going to be okay for my ladybugs? Is it going to bother my bees?" Of course, you don't want to spray it when they're out there, but if you spray it in the evening, like we'd mentioned, and the bees have already gone home, then it can dry overnight, and the bees can go back out there and do their thing. Ladybugs can do their thing. No problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So stop on by this weekend. Anderson Seed and Garden. Yeah. Get something for Dad for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of them.
Fruit trees are on sale. Perennials are on sale. Hanging baskets on sale. And happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
And join us again next weekend when, as we mentioned, we're going to be able to take more of your calls, your comments about what you're seeing in the lawn and in the garden. It is the KVNU Garden Guide every Saturday morning. And if you missed a show, go to kvnutalk.com and you can listen to the podcasts there. Thanks for joining us.
Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM. Proud to be locally owned and operated by the Cash